Mogens Jensen is an adventurer, a professional mountaineer, a former triathlete for the Danish National Team, and a school teacher. He's also asthmatic. Mogens is a person who loves to challenge himself to the limit of his potential. After being diagnosed with asthma, Mogens refused to become a victim of his chronic disease. Instead, he wanted to set an example and inspire others, and the human potential does not have any boundaries. In 2004, Mogens bicycled and ran from Denmark to Mount Everest basecamp, a strenuous trip through 13 countries which he covered in 100 days. No other person in the world has achieved this before. Now Mogens inspires people and leaders to fulfill their potential. Every once in a while, we meet a person that you can connect with, and they are like kindred spirits, somebody who is equally mad as I am. And this week, we were presenting together at TEDx in Dubai, and I saw him, and he started with, "I am crazy," and I'm saying, "I am mad," and he's crazy. And this was the most wonderful start. Mogens Jensen is here all the way from Denmark. He now lives in Dubai. And basically, he has done some of the most amazing things. And he's here to talk to us about his insights, his experiences, but most importantly, about how he's making a difference and how he's just changing the world and how he connects with you. And so today, Mogens, it's a real pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for
inviting me.
It was just such an inspiration a few days ago.
And likewise. Like you said, it's for me also to meet kindred spirits. You can feel, I have goosebumps.
When you're saying that, I'm actually getting exactly that. Yeah.
You're mad and I'm crazy, but it all boils up to just the same idea that we're really passionate about things, and we are sticking out and pursuing our own paths in life and being as authentic as we can.
I'm glad you used the word authentic, because that's my core word, that as long as you can create that authenticity inside you, everything can flow from there. People can smell BS a mile away these days because you have so much knowledge.
And luckily for that, it's very important to be able to do that. Some people also say that you're lucky to find passions in life.
Yes.
And I think that's correct, because I've known people who've been searching more or less their entire life and they haven't found it. So in that way, it's, when you have it, then one of the challenges in my book is that you have to continue being grateful for that thing and not taking it for granted. Yeah. But that in itself is a challenge, because it's so normal for you. But it really is. It's a great gift, and it's also, I think, the way when you have your passion, you can ignite the energy that everybody needs. 97% of the way towards a goal or a dream, it's hard work. Yeah. And the more you see it as a passion and a mission, as opposed to going to work. When I do motivational speaking, I often provoke the audience, saying, "What do you do in Dubai it would be Sunday morning? Do you go to work or do you go on a mission?" Yes. And the difference is passion.
Right.
And it's also motivation, external motivation, the things that you have to do, maybe, and also people will like you to do. A lot of people are pursuing goals that are actually goals of their parents, unfulfilled dreams from parents led on to children. Yeah. And that can it can take you a long way, but in the end, you have to look at what's my internal motivation. Yes. What is it in life that I can't help not doing? If you can find that, then you're really, really lucky, and then you just have to cherish it and be grateful, because that's when you can find the really, 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 really big resources, in my opinion. Now I am a mountaineer of a written. I can't get any higher in this world, so I'll give you a good example. When you're standing at 8,500 meters on Everest, and you don't have anything but your own lungs without oxygen, you haven't slept for 4 days, and you're so tired you don't really care whether you live or die, there's going to be a little devil in the back of your head asking you, "What on earth are you doing here?" Yes. And that's understandable. Yeah. But the thing is, if when the question is asked and you can't, from your mental backpack, find the big why, you're going to turn around. So that's the thing. And the big why wouldn't come from external motivation. The big why would come from deep inside. What's in it for you? Yeah. And so that's the necessity. You have to find the internal motivation, and that's where the passion lies.
Let's go on that journey, because where did it all start as a child? I mean, were you naughty? Were you crazy? Are there any moments there that you remember?
Well, you should ask someone else, but sure. I probably always was rather independent and follow my own paths. Circumstances in life also made that. My sister and I, we were, we had to take a little bit more care of ourselves due to some illness in the family, and that probably gives you a little bit more leeway to discover yourself. But yeah, I said the big jump for me came at the age of 18. That was kind of a, if not a U-turn, then a turn, because I met some people that inspired me really well into pursuing my own dreams, and also, to be honest, towards what both my heart and my head was telling me. But the world was, I used to play football and table tennis, which isn't that flamboyant. But then there was some sort of, at that point, we're talking very early 90s, I saw on television there was a sport called Triathlon.
Yes.
Which is swimming, cycling and running. Yeah. And to me, I heard about someone had done an Ironman, and I was able to run 2 kilometers at that time. That's 1.4 miles, the maximum. And someone, a human being, to be able to do a complete Ironman, 3.8 kilometers of swimming and 180 kilometers of cycling, and then a marathon, 42 kilometers in one day. I thought that for me that was impossible, but then something drew me towards that, because I was mainly fascinated by the mental process, the journey of wonder and curiosity. Those have been my big drivers. What's possible? What are the capacities of the human spirit and soul, and then the body follows. So triathlon was a door opener for me, and I started out running 3 kilometers, and well, in the matter of 3 years, I went from that to doing the Ironman, and I think within, it was about 3 years. I actually, at the age of 21, finished second at my national championship and was on the national team. So that was I couldn't swim when I started. I was afraid of swimming because I drowned, and then 3 years later, I was on the national team. And at that time, you may have been hard-pressed to find 5 people at the age of 21 who had gone below 9 hours on an Ironman, but I was one of them. And I never saw it coming, but my point is, one thing is when you pursue things, normally you'd say that you have the belief it's possible, or you have the belief that it's impossible. Mm-hmm. I also think you can sometimes pursue things just with an open mind, saying, I don't really know because I've never gone there before, but I'm going to give everything I have and I will see what happens. So it's more like a neutral thing as opposed to being the positive or negative. And I think that sometimes, at least it's helped me, and I think it can help because it can be a big pressure, just believing that it can be done. Sometimes you just need to have the open mind and go with the flow. Exploration is one thing, but visioning is the other. I mean, I think, and that's the next step, because I did triathlons for many years. I think since I was a little kid, when I remember, I always had the fascination of mountains. Whenever I saw an atlas or a globe, I had to find Everest. Yes, a lot of children do that, but I guess being crazy as I did, I acted on it. But the thing is, at the age of 26, I was diagnosed with asthma. Mm-hmm. I was training at 30 to 40 hours per week, so you understand that feeling tired would be part of the job. But I often had the feeling that I was breathing through a straw. Mm-hmm. And in the end, I guess someone probably asked me, do you think it could be asthma? In the end, I called my doctor and had some tests. And they do 2 tests. One is to see the volume of your engine. Yes. And he was just, looking at me like, oh, you're just a wiener because you have the engine the size of, a very big Ferrari, but it doesn't really matter if the engine doesn't work. So the second test, I had a 60% utility of my engine. So he said, oh, that we got you. So I was diagnosed with asthma, and at that point, it's a two-edged sword, because on the one point it was a relief. Mm-hmm. I wasn't just being a chicken with no spine who couldn't handle pain. Yeah. It was actually something real. And then on the other hand, I had to realize that I've just been diagnosed with an illness that will probably follow me for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's the same as a situation. But when you get that, you have 2 options. You have option 1, you let your illness control you, and you just sit back and feel sorry for yourself for the rest of your life, and you won't help you very much. And the biggest activity will be playing bridge. Yeah. Not that I have anything against bridge,
My father used to play bridge, so I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I once did a motivational speak at a large school in Denmark, and I used that, with a blink in my eye. But then the day after, one of the teachers came and she said that she was actually a bit sad that I had used that metaphor because she was on the national team playing bridge. Yes. So fair enough. I could only excuse. But then you have the second option, and that is you say, no way. I will not be limited in my dreaming and my thinking. I'm going to take control of my illness.
Yeah.
And then I will learn everything there is to learn about my illness. I will take responsibility of my own also, instead of just letting, the health system help me as the only thing. We have a, entire world of the internet where you can get a lot of information. And that's the path I chose. And being a teacher of origin that I am, I also, as time went by, saw other asthmatics, and especially asthmatic children. And I saw that a lot of them were being limited in their thinking, in their perception of the world, not only by themselves, but also the world around them. It's like the parents were putting cotton around them. They would be excused from doing sports because that would be dangerous in their opinion. But that's the worst thing you can do for an asthmatic. They have to do more exercise. They just have to warm up a little bit more. So if you look at science and all the research, 80% of asthmatics are not properly medicated as to what they can be. We know with the knowledge we have today that you can 99% of the year you can have a more or less symptom-free life, and through that you can pursue your dreams and your goals just as big as if you didn't have an asthma. So I thought, something needs to be done about that. A story needs to be told that you shouldn't just be stuck up with limited thinking. And at that point I was getting tired of doing triathlons, so I thought the mountains were sneaking in after me. I always knew I needed a higher level of challenge.
Right.
Doing an Ironman, if you have a bad day, you can just drop out and call a taxi.
Right.
So I needed something where you dress yourself. It was like the biggest challenge I had in my head that I wanted to give myself, the ultimate challenge, where I dressed myself completely naked and started from scratch and then built towards, and that we talking mountains, it became Everest.
But something inside you, I mean, what you're sharing is amazing, but what was that, the ignition? What ignited you? Because
I would say that it was different things. One of my friends gave me a book at that time. It was a Swede called Göran Kropp, who in '96 had cycled from Stockholm in Sweden down to Everest base camp and had climbed Everest without oxygen. And all of a sudden, when I saw that, I had thought about climbing Everest. I had never thought about transporting myself from my home country to base camp. But after reading that book, it's kind of materialized there. Mm-hmm. This is my big mission. And when we're talking about the big mission, it's like before, you have first and foremost your internal motivation being what's in it for me. Mm-hmm. And it was, again, of course, when you want to climb Everest, you have a big ego too. You need that, otherwise you're going to get yourself killed. But curiosity and wonder. And then, of course, maybe it's in the genes when you're a teacher, then the altruistic part of you, wanting to do good for other people. Yeah. And I was very much inspired also by Gandhi, who said, be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah. Make a difference.
Yeah. So when you actually went out on this journey, in the back of your mind, was that why really strong for you, or was it more? It was.
Yeah. No, it was exceptionally strong. Also because I had nurtured it for a long time. Yeah. But it became strong. But I would tell you one thing. When it's like a mountain, the internal motivation is the really strong point. But when something that's egotistical in the beginning, all of a sudden starts to make sense for other people, and you can start inspiring other people, then you have the other side of the mountain. And in the end, that's the synergies that create the summit. Mm-hmm. And that's what I saw, especially also going on the journey, that when you can combine these two forms of motivation, then the strength you can find when you're under pressure and adversity hits you with 200 kilometers per hour, sure. That creates the biggest why, at least for me.
So the way I'm seeing this is, if you can do this was your life, you did your triathlons, and then you wanted to climb Mount Everest, and then you don't want to do that. It looks like a heartbeat, actually.
It does. Well, it is true. It is the sinus curve.
Yeah.
You're completely right. The thing is, it's a good example. When you're summiting Everest, you're only halfway.
Yeah.
Goes to show you can't have a helicopter pick you up. There's no elevator built in the mountain. Yes. And you could say that the way down is the rest of your life. But also you can say that 90% of all accidents happen on the way down. But it's fair enough. But the thing is, if you climb Everest and that's it, you just put it in the bag, don't use it anymore, then it becomes more or less useless. Yeah. So the thing is, what are you going to use it for? And if you look at me, then I'm a father now. I have a son who's called, oddly enough, he's called Storm. Okay, it's oddly. I figured most people respect the Storm. Yeah. And I have Sophia, and they're 2 and 5. So that's
So fantastic. I'm surprised you didn't call them Peak and Summit.
But Storm still relates. Yeah, that was my idea, and my wife got to choose Sophia's name. So fair enough. Okay. But the thing is, paying it forward is the one thing that makes it most.
The millions of people who will be watching this interview, a lot of them are looking for jobs. A lot of them are actually stuck in their lives, and they just want to unlock something. So imagine that they are here and looking a little bit sad. And then in front of them they see life, and this is life. Sure. What do you tell them? Because I mean, the guys here can't find a job, or saying, well, this region needs 50 million jobs. What do you do from there to there? And how do you?
Well, the thing is, first of all, you need to be aware that the best way to climb a mountain is to take one step at a time. Yeah. So you have to look at what's the nearest zone of development for me. Mm-hmm. Look at yourself and look at your strengths. I believe I'm also a student of positive psychology, and positive psychology has a very direct focus towards strengths, because strengths are you may as well use your biggest strengths. But the thing is, 80% of all people are not aware of their signature strengths. Mm-hmm. So you can do a simple test at biacharacter.org. It's a self-assessment test of your strengths. One of my strengths would be zest, that's life energy. Yes. Another one would be perspective. Mm-hmm. And the next one would be debatable, is humor. You know, some people think I don't have any humor. But things like that. So that would be a good thing. Do a self-assessment of what are my signature strengths, because I believe that when you use them, that's where the passion also will be found. And the thing is, the next one is, as also what I do is I do health interventions and health, physically, mentally, and socially, but especially health in general. If we're looking at the challenges of the world, then that should be. I believe very much if you have a strong body, you will have a strong mind. They go together. Positive psychology says that half of positive psychology is from the neck down. So that would be one thing that you can optimize rather quickly. Look at your sleeping. That would be one of the key factors.
I don't sleep very well, but maybe you can guide me.
You sleep yourself into success, because when you sleep, then your brain processes what happened. So it's not allowed to process. There will be a lot of waste. So you need to sleep properly. If some people can't, and that's fair enough. It's
that's only now.
But the thing is, it's a very overlooked topic, sleep. So make sure you do that, and you're eating and you're training. And you don't have to train yourself to be able to climb Everest. You just have to look at where am I now and how do I get my next percentage. Because it's also about what signals are you sending towards the people you go for an interview with. If you're not exuding healthy living, then I think you're giving yourself a lesser chance, and that's a controllable. You have a lot of things when you're out of work that will be uncontrollable. But first of all, look at the things you can control, and when you've optimized those, it'll give you a better, in my book, chance meeting the uncontrollables.
So let's stay with this metaphor. This person takes the first step, and just using the whole philosophy of mountain climbing, especially when you go up, and then you take a few steps down, and then you go up, and then you take. This is how you normally climb, as I understand it. I'm not a mountaineer.
No, you must have been a mountaineer.
I read a lot. But the whole idea of going up and coming down, going up and coming down, I think this is a great metaphor for life. It's not just that you, as the master Ironman, Mogens Jensen, going all the way up, and then. Exactly. So what is the core message that are you giving them?
What you're addressing is one of my big passionate topics. It's called resilience. I summited Everest not in my second, but in my third attempt. It took me 5 years to get there, and I was blessed with 40 minutes on the summit. So 5 years, 40 minutes. It also goes to show that you have to focus on the journey. That's where the learning will be. And we all have ups and downs, and that's part of life. I think one of the big obstacles of acknowledging also that adversity has a lot of reason and meaning for us. We should pursue it in many ways, because that's where no one reaches a big goal without adversity. So you should remember when you're feeling that you're really challenged in life and you're trying for something and you don't succeed. The easiest thing is to say, I'm the only one in the world who's experiencing this. Remember, it happens for everybody. Everybody in this world experiences the sinus curve, and you've done it here. You know, the sinus curve is keeping us alive.
Yeah.
And I use it as metaphor. You know, you should acknowledge that the bumps are part of the way. Yeah. And just remember, when you go to the hospital and they do an EKG on it, the nurse will tell you, Mogens, it's a good thing that it goes like this, because if it's a straight line, then you have a problem. You need to pull the red string. It means you're dead. Yeah. You know, we need those things. If you never experienced adversity, how were you able to cherish when things went well?
Yeah.
They depend upon each other.
So one of the things that happened was, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but one of the things that happened, you almost reached the summit the first time, and then you had to return. What was that like? Because a lot of us in our lives almost get a job or almost get a contract or almost get something that we really, really want, and then we lose it. Yeah. What was your emotion at that point in time, and how did you recharge yourself?
First of all, I was very tired, but it was in many ways it was an easy choice, but an extremely painful choice, because it was something I had visualized back home. When you're at 8,500 meters, you have 1/3 of oxygen, so you're not rational. You have to have prepared for what do I do when it happens, and then you execute the strategy.
Right.
So that's the thing. Same thing when you go for a job interview. Try and visualize all the things that can happen, and then you can execute strategies, because I think doing a job interview is the same thing as being high on a mountain. You're hypoxic, you don't think clearly, you're under very much of pressure, so you need to have prepared properly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you can do. You know, how do I? Well, first of all, you have to accept it's part of the game. What I was trying to do was jumping through an invisible hole, because no asthmatic had summited Everest without oxygen before. So I was trying to do something that hadn't been done. Yeah. And I knew that just for people trying to do Everest without those, not having asthma, some people had tried 7-8 times before that. So I also think that whatever line of business you're in life, know the history. You have to pay respect, pay homage to the past, because you can learn from the past. And I knew that, so it's easier to accept when you know it's part of the game. And then when you come back home and you recuperate, you start looking at the why again. Is the why big enough for you to go back home and train for 30-40 hours per week for another year and come back? And through that process, I found out it was. And then, of course, having the big ego and the big ambition also helps, because they also they propel you forwards. But the thing was, accept what happened, and then from crisis there are two elements: being being in a crisis and then coming out on the other side strengthened. That's also resilience. Is, if you define that, it's an unexpected outcome. Right. So that means two things are very important. The first thing is that when you have the crisis, your emotions you have to be able to embody the entire scope of emotions, both the negatives and the positives. You have to be able to think positively also, although no matter how black it seems. That's the one thing. You have to have the entire range of emotions and be able to have that in you. And then the second thing is maybe the most important for human beings. It's called relations. You have to share the journey with at least one person. Otherwise, you will end up being weakened by your crisis. So that's the thing. You have to, on your journey, no one climbs a mountain on their own. And it's the same thing here for the people if they're looking for a job. Have someone help you. Ask for their advice. Find inspiration. You're not the first person in the world who's in this situation. What did people who were there before you and succeeded, what did they do? What were their unique habits? How can you learn from them? put that into context, and maybe it'll give you 0.5%. And you may think it's not enough, but maybe that 0.5% is what will make you stand out tomorrow at the job interview as opposed to the other people coming.
Yeah. What you just mentioned was very close to my heart, Mogens, because I did my peak in my career as a businessman, as a professional, and so on, and now I'm sort of here, then going back up again, in terms of as an entrepreneur and somebody who wants to go out there and make a social difference. And what you just said to me, it connected a lot with me, resonated a lot, and that is that it's difficult to do it on your own. Yes. And so I need a co-founder, I think, and all the 25 million people watching there, I need a co-founder. Yeah. But no, it's on a very serious note. It's a very lonely journey. Were you lonely in your journey?
Yes, at times loneliness surely is there. Yeah. Especially when you're up high on the mountain, you are left with yourself and your own ability to make the right choices at the right time. Right. But still, you're also a part of the team. No man climbs a mountain on his own. It just as you near the summit, then you also become more and more dependent on yourself, and you have to be very, very honest towards yourself. Am I doing the right thing? Do I have the power to go on? And when I do have that, do I also have the power to go down? Yeah. So loneliness, I think, is a part of it. But it shouldn't be the only one. It'll be flashes of loneliness, and then you have the group that you can. When you go from one camp to another, then you have to be more alert on yourself, and you reach the next camp and you fall. Someone carried a tent, someone carried a stove, someone carried the food, someone has the sleeping bags. It's all creating, the synergies that is the expedition, and the reason why that's happening. Because 8 people with big egos, they can be, you would say they go their own way. But we are on a joint mission, and that means that the ego stays put for most of the time, and then we see, these are my strengths, how can we use them for us to have the ultimate goal reached.
At the end of the day, ego is fine because it energizes you, but I think there's enough glory in the world, and there's enough to do in the world to be able to share and still thrive.
One of my experiences is that to pursue the big goals, you need your ego, but to come home from them, you need humility. Yeah, only the brave will try to climb Everest, and only the humble will return, because you're entering something. You're paying visit to something that is much bigger than yourself. And in this history, it's nature, and if you're not humble, nature will teach you a lesson. Maybe you're lucky to survive it, but it'll have a price that will cost you dearly. And on the other hand, maybe you'll be, one of the statistics who never came home. I'm not saying that everybody who didn't come home wasn't humble, but the thing is, you have to be humble. And I believe that it's because the journey we're on is, we don't have a finish line we're working towards. Yeah. And humanity doesn't. We don't have a finish line. It's an ongoing process. And what we're looking at as human beings, I think it's called marginal gains. We're always looking for how can we become a little more developed in our mental or physical or social strengths, and that's the thing. That's one of the abilities we have as human beings. We can learn from our experiences. So that's the thing is, you have to be humble and grateful of the gift you've been given, and being humble also knows that you're never finished. You can always build on what you have. And if you think you've finished, then you're not humble anymore. And I think you've done a big mistake. So that's one of the things I try to give, pay forward to the people I work with, but also use it for myself and my family.
Let me take you back to your craziness. Apart from climbing Mount Everest, let's say Denmark is here, and then you wanted to run. You wanted to bike all the way. What possesses a person to try and do something completely crazy like that?
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was out of curiosity, very much out of wonder, and of course ambition. I wanted to give myself the ultimate goal that my fantasy could give. And the thing is, when I started this and I was on the front page of my home local newspaper, the only thing I had climbed was the Sky Mountain of Denmark. And it sounds like it's a high mountain, but it's 160 meters above sea level. So the thing was for me to start from scratch. Yeah. believing myself, as at that time I had been shown I had a reasonable ability to learn quickly. In 2.5 years, I wanted to go from the Sky Mountain and then finish off. Of course, I had a preparation phase where I would, be learning about what is it to be a mountaineer, and I went on different expeditions. I was lucky enough to get some sponsors that created a platform that I could be a professional climber in the country without mountains. So it allowed me to have a very intense process where I could learn and then finish it off. But it was like, the ultimate challenge. It was very romantic in many ways also. But I thought that, that would be a fantastic platform of learning. Learning what I can and also what I can't at the moment, to find out where my boundaries are, and when I see them, how do I push them a little bit.
Tell us how you spend your time these days. What are the sort of things do you do?
Having done all these crazy things,
yes.
I still do crazy things, but with a different perspective. Because now I have that story, and I've become a father. You have another responsibility, and you take the gas off all the big risks. At least I've done 80% at least. Because my children didn't ask to come here.
You brought them.
Yeah, we brought them, my wife and I. So I try to. When I was at that crossroad, I looked back and said, what have I learned? What are my fantastic victories? And maybe even more important, what are my fantastic failures? Because I believe you learn much more from your failures than your successes, and that's where you really have to have open eyes and be very humble and see how can I take that on. So paying it forward means that nowadays I do motivational speaking, I do business development, and then I found a niche in Denmark. I created a concept for the very busy businessman, and it turned out to be like I found a niche of the top 1% of society in Denmark. So I've had the pleasure of working with the Minister of Justice, members of European Parliament, mayors of some of the biggest cities of Denmark, company owners, very successful people in many ways who are incredibly inspiring. So I've learned more from them than they have from me. But then the price they all paid pursuing their dreams was they forgot about themselves, and that's where I came into the picture. So I've had a lot of these people who were standing more or less with one leg or 1.5 leg in the grave. And within 3 months, I've transformed them into, they've become 20 years younger, both physically and mentally. And I give them the platform so they can carry out all their dreams. And that, of course, I use my experiences.
So is that a physical process or
it's
exercise?
It's very much a mental process.
Okay.
Because the physical is so easy. Anyone can tell a person how to swing a kettlebell. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
What is my main focus is psychology, because that's where it all happens, and that's what I'm good at. I'm born with probably what would be a little more mirror neurons than the average, meaning that my empathy, my ability to understand and find people where they are. We have a very famous philosopher in Denmark. He's dead, Søren Kierkegaard, and he once said, if you want to take someone somewhere, it's a very good idea to find them where they are. And I think that is the epicenter of helping other people, is finding them where they are, understanding them, and then you can carry on the journey. So that in the past 5 years I've had around 100 clients, and it's at least 4 months very intense processes, and it's been so inspiring and learning for me, and hopefully also for them.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Now, you reached one peak. You're a father.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah, I was going to say,
sure.
As a father, as a parent, and a lot of parents would be watching something like this. Now what's your next peak, Mogens? Where are you going? Yeah. I understand the lower risk, but you got a big heart, you got a big vision, you got a lot of energy and experience. What's the next peak?
The next peak for me is, you could call it hopes for... Well, first of all, of course, asthma is one of my babies, and especially coming to Dubai in the Middle East, it's a rather big issue, and it's a big challenge. In Dubai alone, more than 10% of the population asthmatic. If you go to Saudi Arabia, it's 1 in 4. That means 25%. And if you say that 25% of population has allergy or asthma, and 80% of those people are not properly medicated and trained, so it will be rising the well-being of people and asthmatics, of course, but also just to be able to help other people who have their dreams, who want to pursue their own Everest. And we have to remember that an adventure is a subjective matter.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you do it with passion and you pursue your own Everest, meaning that you have some dreams and goals, both for yourself and also hopefully for people around you. To be able to help those people, giving them mentoring and coaching, so that hopefully they can, in their journey, maybe they can learn from me and not do the same mistakes that I did, and do some other mistakes.
Yes.
And also, just a general thing, and also just especially health-wise, we have to realize that right now, in my opinion, if you look at the world and we look at human beings, we have a very big mismatch. REM said that what we once wrote, I think it was on the album document, what we need and what we want has been confused. We have to remember that we are creatures of nature. We are not made for sitting on a chair looking into a computer screen for 10 hours per day. We need to go out into nature. There's a reason why we call this body a motion apparatus. It's not made for sitting still in inactivity. And that's the worst part, isn't it? For a human being, the easiest thing to do in any aspect of life is not do anything. Then if you want to feel bad, it's easy. Don't do anything, it'll come by itself. Yes. And that's the same thing if you look at a relationship. If you want your relationship to be bad, easy recipe, don't do anything, it'll come by itself. So anything, and health especially, health never rests. That means no matter how successful you become, you cannot buy a ticket that will give you eternal health. It's an active, and no matter how much money you make, you can't buy good health. You have to be active towards it. So, and that for me is, we have to go back to where we came from, where we realized that body and mind, it's heart and head, it's connected. And I think there's a mismatch right now where we're forgetting that. So we need to go back to be able to move forward.
So while you're working towards eliminating or inspiring people to engage and deal with asthma, which is one big thing, while you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, there's a collateral benefit here, because you've got to be fitter. When you're fitter and stronger, you're in this country. Half the young people in this country are diabetic. Type 2 diabetes is going to be more than 50%. So that's a collateral benefit.
Oh, it is collateral. And diabetes, being a health mentor, if I look at all the clients that I had with diabetes too, the one who was able to throw away his diabetes medicine, the latest was 3 months. And the only pill he took to get rid of that medicine was the pill called the lifestyle pill. He started focusing on his sleep, his diet, and his training. And then it went away. Whereas often we see nowadays, if people are diagnosed with something, the first question they ask the doctor is, what can I get for it? Yes. Instead of what can I do about it? Yeah. Because diabetes too, as long as you haven't had it if you had it less than 5 years, looking at your lifestyle, I'm not saying that it can happen to anybody, because it can't, but a lot of people would be able to go a very, very long way focusing on the basics. Get enough sleep, eat, and move your butt.
You're a man who brings about hope. This is a ball of hope, which was done by one of my friends, Bobby Sager, in Africa, where little kids were given this ball to play.
Story.
It's a great story. How do you give hope to people? What are you doing in your life? Because you have the power and the platform to be able to do that. Sure. How do we get there?
First of all, you have to have projects that show other people that things can be done. If everybody stays at the ground level, we won't have any stars to look at them. Figuratively speaking,
indeed.
If you turn off the stars, well, everything comes black. So, so I chose to have a project that hopefully was, one of the stars that showed that, the sky is not the limit. You can go in further. So creating hope, you have to show things. That means walk and talk. You have to have the walk also. Talking is easy. You can tell anybody, oh, the sky's the limit. You're so special. Go and do it. Pursue it. But you also have to have a realistic take on it. So that's the thing. Also, I think that hope is the last thing that disappears from a human being. So if you don't have hope, then you're really in big trouble. Hope is also being aware of this, the sinus curve. You have to be aware that adversity is part of life, and it's a very important part of life. So that means when you go for your own dreams, then don't expect a paved road without any bumps and you'll have a tailwind all the way. That's not meant to be. If I look back at the things that I cherish the most, that I've accomplished, it's the things that I had to work the hardest to get. And all the very, very successful people that I've been blessed with in sports and in corporate world, in life in general, they have all faced adversity. And when you see, like you and I, you see, talk to 25 million or how many people are watching Mad Talks, it's the thing, when you hear about successful people, often you see one part of the medal, the shiny part, and there's a really black part on the other side, and that was a necessity for the shiny part to materialize. And I think that's the thing, when you look at the people who inspire you, remember that these people also had to go through very tough times. And you should expect the same thing too, and when it happens, you shouldn't be startled by it. You should see, of course you shouldn't just lie down, but see it as a part of the game. That I think is important to create hope too. And also that take one step at a time. If you come to basecamp on Everest and you focus on the summit for the entire 10 weeks it takes to climb it, the mountain in your head will have become 20 kilometers higher.
Yes.
It's too hard on the brain. Don't focus on the journey, that's the goal in itself, and then it will give you the best result. That's also science. If you focus on your journey and the process, then you'll get the best results. And I think that's important too when you're looking at hope.
One of the other variables which a lot of these great people that I have spoken to talk about is luck. And luck, but more opportunity. And then you're working hard, you get opportunity. Some people call it luck. People like you and I just call it like hard work coming together with opportunity.
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Absolutely. Now, one of those breaks that you got was to be discovered by Discovery Channel, which reached 500 million people.
And
tell us about that. Yeah.
When we're talking about fate, do you think things happen by chance in life? I don't. And the thing is, I started out with my local newspaper, front page of that, and that's for Danish size, Viborg, which is the city that I come from. It's a medium-sized Danish city. It has 40,000 inhabitants. That's a fairly big city in Denmark. And you laugh at it if you look at here, right? But the thing is, that was the first platform, and then as I rolled out the project, then Denmark became a platform because you don't have that many crazy climbers. You have a lot of crazy people in Denmark, but not so many crazy climbers. And especially since I was the first in the world ever to transport myself cycling and running from my home country to Everest Base Camp, it created a little attention. I didn't summit in my first attempt, and then I was coming back the year after. And then chance, let's call it that, was that Russell Bryce, who had the expedition company, I used his logistics and knowledge. He was a big inspiration and extremely competent. But he had made a deal with Discovery Channel. I believe it's a minor American documentary channel. No, it's rather big, isn't it? And they 6 programs, 45 minutes to be sent on global discovery. And because of my crazy story, I became one of the main characters. And then I didn't summit that year, so I came back another year. They were coming back too. So in the end, we ended up 12 programs, 45 minutes, global discovery. And I believe to this day, it's 10 years since they were broadcast first. Probably 500 million people have watched it. And I went from 40,000 to 500 million people on Discovery Channel. And that just, I think it's a good metaphor for showing that adventures, when you go on an adventure, when you start, you have no idea what it can amount to, how it can escalate. It's like the inertia from a snowball. When you throw it down a mountain, it'll pick up more snow and becomes gigantic at the end. And that's the thing, you shouldn't limit yourself too much. That's where the open mind is a good idea, because just go with the flow and see what happens. And that meant that for 10 years, every week, I receive emails from people around the world who've seen the programs, even now, when they have been rerun for the 20th time. But people have seen the programs and they've heard my story, and they something my blessing, of course, has sunk in with them, and they take time to write. You know, the most valuable asset is time, but they take some of their time to write me an email and say, Mogens, we saw the program, and we were very inspired. Thank you very much. And for me, if I look back in the 10 years, 12 years that my crazy project, the biggest compliment that I ever got, and the biggest accomplishment was exactly that I was able to inspire other people. I don't think you can get a bigger compliment from any journey you do in life.
Absolutely.
Is to do good with other people, and it makes so much sense. It's the same thing when people say when you're climbing Everest, and what do you do now? Where do you go from there? And I said, well, I've stepped to the side, and now I'm helping other people. I'm trying to help other people, and say, but that can't be the same. It's not the same, but in many ways, it's more rewarding to see other people succeed in their dreams, and that knowing that you've had a little bit of share in that journey.
Indeed, and that is where humility starts clicking
and
in. That is
yeah.
where you become much, much bigger than yourself,
Sure.
And you inspire. One of my other questions is that we spoke about the young people, and we have the world of technology and social media and so on. The other group, which are the employers and the older people and so on, what should they be looking for in the young people coming in, and how to inspire themselves and connect with these people?
Well, the thing is that we're living in a world that's changing all the time, and you actually, my inspiration in that topic is you, because when we did the TEDx together, you said that you have a young mentor.
Yes.
And I think that's an extremely humble thing to do, because you've realized that, hey, I'm somewhat, I'm 44, you know, so it's a bit more than 21, but it's a new world, and I don't understand it as well as the people living in it, so let me get a mentor in that way. And I think that should be, normally you would say that when you get older, then you become more of a mentor for others.
Yeah.
But the thing is to be able to continue being humble and learning from the younger generations it can also help you in the visions that you still have, and give you a broader perspective. So I think that's a wonderful idea. So I need to find my own young mentor.
Your young mentor, we are putting a whole reverse mentoring program together, and please become our star mentee. So when we have the younger people, the 21-year-old will be teaching you.
Well, feel free to contact me.
Thank you. No, I think that would be wonderful, because I think they need to. You can inspire younger people, because you can just say, listen, you have a contribution to make to me in terms of your vision and your contribution. I think that's a wonderful thing to see. When you dealing with CEOs and people who are in the position of employing young people and so on, and you're obviously, while you're doing your health check with them, you're also doing their mental thing. What are the kind of things that they're scared of? What are their fears? And as these young people are coming up,
change and the ability to handle change. I think most of the people that I've worked with, they know that they don't have the same. They don't. It's not in their genes. It's it's something they had to learn. It just come natural to them. And young people nowadays, they've been living with this constant change all their life. For them, it's a natural thing.
Yeah.
It does not alarm them that they have to change. Whereas the older generation, and myself and you will probably relate to it too, change stresses us much more than it does the younger generation.
Yes.
So look at how is that? And I believe that one of the things is they go more with the flow as opposed to being judgmental in everything that happens, that you have to have an opinion on this and that. They just more go with the flow and accept that this is how it is. I think the older generation, we try to fight it more, whereas they just see that as normal. We see it as abnormal because it doesn't relate to the world we lived in when we were their age. So that's one of the things, and that's where the reverse mentoring can be very useful, I believe, because they can install a different perspective to us as opposed to that. And the world is changing all the time. And it's actually good. We all remember Charles Darwin's survival of the fittest. And initially, when you think about that, you say it's the strongest that survive. But that's not what Darwin meant. He meant that the ones who are able to adapt will survive. And that's the thing. That's the thing, precisely. Your ability to adapt and accommodate change.
What's the advice that you would give to your young children as they grow up in terms of what they want to do in life? Do you want them to be a musician, an artist, a sports person, or a scientist? as a parent, what are you telling them?
As a parent, I don't care what they become, as long as they do something that gives them a great why. Well, of course there are limits, but I don't want Storm to become a mountaineer. It's we know a lot of parents, unfulfilled dreams are moved on to next generation. I think that's a big mistake. I think what really is a big wish is that they are lucky enough to meet activities that can ignite their passion and internal motivation, and be that a doctor or taxi driver or whatever. As long as it's something that gives great meaning and increases their well-being doing, then I'm fine.
You gave a lovely example of of a shipbuilder and what you train them for. Can you share that with us, please?
When you have your dreams and you have other people working with other people, there's an old saying that if you want to build a ship, you shouldn't teach people the art of carpentry. You should awaken their longing for the sea. And that too is something I take as a philosophy in the people that I work with, is we look at, and that's meaning, and that's the big why. Because anybody can learn how to do, not to put anything down about that, but the bigger meaning and the bigger motivation will come from the longing for something, because that's important.
Mogens, you're a very blessed man, and you have a wonderful family. You've achieved a lot of peaks in your life, and you've reached what I would call a very, very high inflection point. Now you can do three things. You can go down the mountain, the peak. You can stay and cruise because you've done enough to survive, or take the next one. What's your next peak in your life?
The next peak is going to be trying to help other people succeed in their line of expertise or dream. That's the thing for me. Personally, if you want to, superseding cycling and running from Denmark and almost climbing Everest on the first, that's something I have to live with. At the age of 35, that was my absolute summit. I couldn't top that.
Right.
So it is, in other ways, it's about helping.
Because the psychology of a lot of artists and models and sports people, they actually go into deep depression after they've achieved their pinnacle, and then you need to find your way back. And that's why it's so important.
You're forced to, because I can easily relate to that.
Yeah.
Because that is the thing. Because afterwards, I've also different projects. But it's when you get to a certain point, then you realize that it's still it wouldn't match up to what you have done. So you have to find other values to use your passion, because your passion doesn't die when you reach the summit of Everest. You have to use it for the rest of the time.
Now let's be playful. Let's do something. I'm sure I'm sure Storm will enjoy that. Imagine we have a big capsule around us, a time capsule, and we're all there, and we're going to be transporting ourselves into the future, 50 years from now. It's your 90th birthday, and you're there, and all of us are there to celebrate Mogens' life. What are we celebrating? What are we saying he has achieved? He did the Mount Everest in 2007. He's done that.
Yeah.
What's he done is 2047?
Sure. Well, first of all, it would be a memory of a person who was very passionate and tried to follow the path that his head and heart were telling him to do, that he was true to himself and his values and didn't compromise in that regard, and tried to. He wasn't very focused on what other people wanted him to pursue of dreams. He was very true to himself. Yeah. And one of the things that would be great value, it's a hope, the fact that he used his experiences to pass them on to family and friends, and of course the people that he worked with. The thing that you should dream big, you should have the courage to do so, but you should also be realistic in that, and also the fact that he didn't try to paint fairy tales. He was being realistic dreamer.
Mogens, I'm genuinely humbled by this experience. I saw you the other day. I am really privileged to connect with you today with my heart. I feel very, very humbled by this. You're a great role model. You've achieved amazing greatness already, and you're still wanting to do more, and people can easily cruise. So I feel, inshallah, absolutely. And so I feel inspired. I believe a lot of the people who are watching this will find something in their whole process. And I'm sure you will do wonderful, wonderful things. And I hope your dreams come true, because you're fulfilling other people's dreams. So dreams time X, so that's infinity that you're creating. Any final advice that you would like to give to the millions of people who will be actually seeing this?
Yeah, I think gratitude is very important. I think that we should remember that you don't necessarily need the big achievements to feel fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should remember that we can find big miracles in small events. Yeah. So that means open your eyes and focus on your journey as opposed to only the result you're aiming for. Because if you do that for 5 years, you will have missed a lot of small miracles. Yeah. So that's the thing. Focus on the journey and remember that's the real goal. And then in the end, you will maybe you get 40 minutes on the summit, but you spent 5 years getting there. Mm-hmm. And the 5 years is the platform for your learning and your growing. So remember that the big miracle and the small things.
Mogens, deep honor. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.